Hey everyone, Strung Out BGD here, back with yet another review. Today I'm going to go over the last of my 50cm dolls with Rhea, whom is on DollsTown's Elf body. However, because Rhea's head was made by a completely different company and therefore not originally designed for this body, she will not be featured in this video. I'd also like to note that this doll has been given hot glue sueding, so some of its posing capabilities are better than that of a brand new doll. I would like to note that this video will contain doll nudity. Unlike playline dolls like Barbie, most BGDs are sculpted with nipples and genitalia. While the DollsTown Elf body is not graphically sculpted, if nudity is something that bothers you, you should stop watching now. Here's a look at the measurements for the body as posted by DollsTown. I also included information about my specific doll body as well as the head shown on it in this video. As mentioned earlier, I won't be doing this review with my Notdoll Lab head on the body since it is a different company sculpt. Instead, I'll be going through this review with my DollsTown Elina head, which the company has advertised in pictures to be a suitable head sculpt for this body. As you can see, the head can tilt well from side to side and keep its pose. It can also look down and up very well. The Alina head, like the rest of the dolls made by DollsTown, uses a head cap system. Here you can see that the cap is secured to the head via both the magnet at the bottom of the opening and a sort of hook built right into the cap to help keep it locked into place. As for the inner workings of the head, the DollsTown Elf body simply keeps heads secured to it via a standard S-hook, and the eyes are kept in place with putty. Moving down, you can see that this body can't hold its arms up very well on its own without being in a specific position. The elbow is a floating double-jointed peanut piece and allows her to fully bend her arm. This piece wasn't sculpted in the more standard smooth rectangular shape, but instead has a small lip built into it to allow for the elbow to lock into place when fully bent. Unfortunately, the inclusion of this feature means that it takes a little bit of manhandling to utilize the joint fully, in that you have to pull the lower arm piece out and then place it onto the lower half of the elbow part. The hands have an incredible range of motion and keep their position very well. They can also wiggle around within the socket quite freely. Here we see more detail with the hands. This girl was sculpted with tall and slender in mind, and her hands are definitely following along with that style, with her long and delicate looking fingers. Unlike many other dolls on the market, the elf body's torso only has a joint at the hip, as opposed to the usual underbust or waist joints that most dolls have. Here you can see she can bend quite extensively from side to side, though it does look a little odd. She is also capable of leaning forward and backward, though again it just doesn't look as natural on its own compared to dolls with waist or underbust joints. However, despite this, with some creative positioning and concealing, she can pull off some very natural looking poses. Something else you'll find that's uncommon with this body is that instead of having sockets in the hip piece, it actually was designed with the ball pieces sculpted straight into the hip part, and the socket being in the upper thighs. It looks a little odd if it's not a style you're used to seeing, but as you can see, it works pretty well. As I mentioned before, this doll is sueded, so straight out of the box, this body may not be able to hold their leg up quite this well, unless it is more tightly strung with quality elastic. Whether sueded or not though, this body sits very well on its own. Down to the thighs, they don't really swivel inwards very well on the hip ball due to the angle of the upper portion of them. Outward seems to work a lot better. On the back of the upper thighs, we'll take a quick look at these rather noticeable scooped out areas. I'll show you in a moment what the purpose of these are. The knees, like the elbows, are double jointed with a floating peanut piece. Also like the elbows, they have a lip that the lower leg can be placed onto to allow the legs to be locked into a fully bent position. Again, this takes some extra fiddling to utilize, especially when the doll is closed. Returning to the reason for those dents in the back of the thighs, here it is. It is so that the legs can look more natural when fully bent. I've also found this feature to be helpful in keeping the doll steady while it's on its knees. And last we have the feet. Unlike the rest of the body, they really don't look all that great in my opinion. The sculpting put into them seemed like almost an afterthought. Despite not being very aesthetically pleasing, they have excellent mobility. They can be pointed almost directly down and bent upwards fairly well. They also have a free range of movement within the socket. Also, thanks to how much the foot can be pointed downwards, I've been able to wiggle these feet into plenty of SD girl heels, though since they're not actual heel feet, you'll want to stick to heeled boots and shoes that don't show off the doll's foot. Here's one last look at the body in full. The sculpting and detail is quite beautiful in my opinion. I really enjoy the muscle detail they put into the front and the back of the torso, as well as the upper arms. The overall look of the body also really lives up to the stereotypical elf look, being tall and slender. This body is overall a wonderful selection if a highly posable doll is what you're after. However, it does take some finagling to get the elbows and knees fully bent thanks to the locks built into them. Also, I've found it takes some trial and error to string this doll so that it stands well, since it has a tendency to crumple down on itself. You'll definitely want to restring it with quality thick elastic, as well as suede its legs to help alleviate this issue. Like I've mentioned in my previous reviews of my other 50cm tall dolls, because of this odd height, shopping for clothes can be hit and miss. The doll is right between standard 1/3 and standard 1/4 scale, so you will have to experiment a bit to figure out what size of tops and bottoms will fit the doll. Clothing that fits Zhao girls will generally fit well on this body, though her hips are a bit slimmer than a Zhao's, so bottoms will be a bit loose. Lastly, at this point in time, DollsTown does not have a male counterpart to this body, so if you'd prefer a male doll in this size from this company, you're pretty much stuck with this one. On the plus side, the body has a small enough bust that even without modding and the right clothes, you can pretty easily get this doll to pass as male with this body. Overall, the body not only looks great, but poses fantastically too. On top of that, with the way it is sculpted, it can prove to be quite versatile for whatever type of character you might want to use it for. And that's it for my review. If you have any questions or feedback about this body, feel free to leave a comment below. We'll see you in the next video. Head on the body, since it is a different company's sculpt. Why am I having such a hard time saying this? I will not be doing the review with a Notdoll Lab head on the body.